everyone, it's Peter Kerr from Daydream Nation, and I've got Todd Evans back to the channel. How are you, Todd?
Very good, thank you. I'm really looking forward to this.
We are going to do a show on Led Zeppelin, and more specifically about this album behind me, the 1976 album, Presence. So what we are going to do is we're going to put a spotlight on this album, talk tracks, performances, and what we think of the album with 2024 ears. So, Todd, I'll start off with, what was your recollection of Presence or any songs of Presence in the day or when you first heard this album?
Well, I will start by saying that the first Led Zeppelin album that was the new Led Zeppelin album, as far as me being an enthusiast of rock or heavy rock, would have been Into the Outdoor. So Presence being 1976, correct? That would have been a time that I was 12. So I don't remember when Presence came out. But I do want to say that I remember Presence being something where when Into the Outdoor came out, I remember that a friend that lived across the street from me had Presence, and I remember seeing it and going, "Oh yeah, I remember that when that was in the store." And but the most vivid memory I have about it is that there seemed to be a consensus amongst people that I knew in high school, like in 80, 81, that thought that Presence was not a good album. I don't know if you had that experience too, but there were people. My buddy who lived across the street from me, Mike, his tastes were definitely more mainstream than mine were. So he liked Yes and Pink Floyd, so we had common ground there. But he also liked Uriah Heep and Zeppelin and things like that, things that were a little bit more late 60s meat and potatoes than the stuff that I was into. The Who, he was a huge Who fan, but he liked Presence. And he was always complaining about how nobody else did, and it's just because they didn't get it and all that stuff. And so I always had this positive feeling in the back of my head, in the back of my brain about Presence, because I remember listening to it at the time and thinking, "Oh yeah, Presence is pretty good." And I'd hear Nobody's Fault But Mine on the radio and think that there's nothing wrong with that album; it's perfectly fine.
Mm-hmm.
So those are my first impressions of it. So when we were talking about doing the show, I was like, "Oh yeah, Presence, I like that." Well, we can talk about how maybe we like it and maybe other people don't like it so much. But one of the things that I hope I'm not getting ahead of myself here. One of the things that made this assignment challenging for me was that my favorite Zeppelin album, and I've said this before, my favorite Zeppelin album is Into the Outdoor. And so I tend to, surprise, surprise to anybody who's seen me before, I tend to like things that have orchestration. I tend to like things that have keyboards, synthesizers, things that are lush, stuff like that. So obviously I like Into the Outdoor. Obviously I like Houses of the Holy. Obviously I like Physical Graffiti. So this album doesn't have that. This album sort of was made quickly, and it's very much guitar-based drums, but I love it despite that. And but the thing that made this challenging for me, I'll go back to my original thought, was that I felt like it was difficult to remember which song was which. Like I felt like to prepare for the show, I had to study because I could hear them in my head, but I couldn't remember which one. I'd hear one in my head and I think, is that Royal Orleans or For Your Life? You don't have that issue with Into the Outdoor because every song is so different from each other. And you don't have that really as much for Zeppelin 4 because those songs are so popular. Zeppelin 2, same thing. But this album is kind of like I've been listening to it nonstop for a couple of months. I mean, probably 3 or 4 times a week. And every time I listen to it, it's more like I just kind of groove on it and enjoy it. But I would have to remind myself, you've got to learn which song is which. And I think that
Yeah.
that's one of the characteristics of this album is it's just kind of a rocking good time, but it's not necessarily shifting a lot of gears.
Well, my experience with Led Zeppelin goes back to Stairway to Heaven and high school. all the songs off Led Zeppelin 4, because in my group of friends and my social circle, or per se the school, Led Zeppelin 4, even in 1981, 82, 83, was just played to death. So if I'm playing in a band, you know, obviously there were songs off that album that would be part of the song set. It was just part of the DNA with anyone who liked hard rock or heavy metal. And one night I was listening to the radio. They had this show on a FM radio show called The Midnight Metal Shop, and they played Nobody's Fault But Mine. And for some reason, this song has escaped me. I never kind of heard it. And I went, wow, this is fantastic. Wrote it down, bought the album, and I've been in love with it ever since. So in my sort of favorite Zeppelin, it's either between this album and 3 that are my favorite Led Zeppelin, and I oscillate between both of them. But we'll talk more about the tracks. But yeah, this is just something that's been in constant rotation, and I've loved it ever since.
I wanted to say one thing to piggyback off of that. My sister had Led Zeppelin 4, and it was the only Led Zeppelin album she ever bought. But she didn't just like Stairway to Heaven. She liked the rest of it, but then she never went any further. I started out, you know, my trajectory was jazz rock like Chicago and stuff like that, and Blood, Sweat, and Tears. And then I went into prog rock and new wave kind of at the same time. So I initially started out like in the 77, 78, being sort of down on Led Zeppelin. I just sort of thought that, Led Zeppelin was not a band that I would like until I started talking, until I got into high school, like 10th, 11th grade, started talking to friends about it. And so I started out thinking that I didn't used to make fun of Led Zeppelin 4, but I thought of it as a record that my sister had that I didn't like. So
yeah, absolutely.
It took me a little while. I had to warm up to them.
Yeah. One thing about this album, Todd, is that I really have this theory that post-Physical Graffiti, a lot of the Led Zeppelin albums are kind of don't get the recognition or the airplay or get spoken about in the same way as the albums prior to Physical Graffiti. They're in a little bit of the shadow, and this one does get sort of ignored in the catalogue. I don't think there's a lot of uber excitement. So when they were doing the remastering series, and Jimmy Page was part of it, it was beautifully sort of catalogued, wonderful presentations. All those early albums, there was a lot of excitement. But when it came to Presence, it was like, but to me, wonderful.
Well, we will talk about this when we start getting into the songs, but Led's Presence did not need a lot of help in the mastering department. Presence already sounded like $1 million.
Just like little tweaking here and there.
Exactly.
Little tweaking. It does.
Exactly. But I think that I've always felt this way about it. There's I think one of the biggest reasons that people don't seem to remember it very well is the packaging. The name is not even printed. It's just sort of embossed. You have to look at it, kind of funny. First of all, this sleeve design is just outstanding. I think it's one of the best album covers of all time.
So, I mean, Blue Oyster Cult and Led Zeppelin are the kings of mystery, and Led Zeppelin are very mysterious. You've got the symbols for all the band members, the runes, all those mysterious album covers. Like Led Zeppelin 4, there's no name. They are the kings of just creating.
What's on the back?
Mystique.
Nothing.
Yes.
What's on this album? And then you pull out the sleeve, and it's the same on both sides.
It's the shape. What is this? Right. What does it mean? And this is really fascinating because when you've got an album cover that has something mysterious, it's whatever you want it to believe. It lets your imagination run wild. Therefore, it transfers into the music and vice versa. Can you imagine getting this album in 76 and just looking at the pictures and listening to this? It's all part of an experience.
Yeah.
And it's something that you don't get when you've got a little CD and you're trying to, or
Yeah.
when you're downloading it on Spotify or whatnot. So
Right.
it's all part of
Well,
that
another
experience.
Another recollection that I have from high school, I want to mention this before I forget. I had a couple of friends that were in bands that were kind of stoners, for lack of a better word, and they loved Led Zeppelin. So when I started to get interested in it, I was asking them a lot of questions and stuff like that, and I was trying to learn which song was which. And one of them told me. A lot of people don't know the titles of Led Zeppelin songs. They just know the one that goes da 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 da. They know the riffs,
Yep.
you know. They know dun,
Yeah.
dun, 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 dun. You know,
Yeah.
it's like, and I thought that was really interesting because some of the songs have kind of mysterious titles. And, the title of Led Zeppelin 4 is not really Led Zeppelin 4, it's those four symbols. And
Yeah.
so there's a lot of mystery.
Absolutely. And did we know a lot about Led Zeppelin really as kids learn growing up? Not really, other than Jimmy Page had a fascination with the occult. There was a
Hmm.
little bit of a dark side. It all adds to the mystique of this band, isn't it?
Right. And
Album
it took me
cover,
until I
music.
was, yeah, it took me until I was, in my 50s to figure out how great of a singer Robert Plant was. Like
Oh,
how technically perfect. I don't want to say perfect, but excellent of a singer he is. He's just Robert Plant. You just take it for granted. You just think, oh, it's the Led Zeppelin guy. Well, he sounds like this. Yeah, I like him. Everybody likes him.
yeah.
I never really thought about how good he was until I got older.
Yeah. So this album came out in 76, went to number one in the UK, number one in America. I think it broke the record for that period of time for the most advanced sales. So it went absolute gangbusters. They didn't do a tour behind it. Robert Plant had an accident when he was
Hmm.
on holidays in Greece and broke his ankle. And when they were recording this album, he was actually in a wheelchair. So you wouldn't know it because his singing is
No.
absolutely sublime. As we get into the
Yeah.
tracks, we'll talk more about it. But there is a little bit of adversity on this album. But again, out of adversity comes great art and some great music. So let's get straight into the tunes. So the first one is an absolute stone cold epic. Achilles Last Stand clocks in at 10 minutes and 26 seconds. I believe it is the longest Zeppelin song in their catalog. What do you think of this track?
Well, the first thing that I want to say about it is that it has insanely good sound. An absolutely stunning drum sound. It is without a doubt the song that I play when I get a new piece of gear. Like there's like three or four songs that I always play, and this is one of them because, and it's not even a good song for that because it's going to make everything sound good. So it doesn't really reveal anything if you're trying to compare, like speakers or cartridges or anything like that. But I always go to it because I just love the way it sounds. I think it's my favorite track on the album. I think it is mainly a showcase for Jimmy Page, but at the same time, I think that it's John Bonham's best performance. I mean, that's hard to pick because that's one of the things that stood out to me when I first started listening to them is, oh my gosh, not only is that drummer so great, but how he sounds so good. And you even go back to Zeppelin 2 and Zeppelin 1 where the technology wasn't quite there and he still sounds good. It's just always kind of blown my mind. It's a bit repetitious, maybe. I don't feel like Achilles' Last Stand is too long. There's another song on this album that I feel is too long that's actually shorter. But there's and one of the things that's really cool is a lot of different sounds for Jimmy Page, a lot of weird effects. I don't know what they are. I'm not a guitarist, and by any means an expert in anything Led Zeppelin. But there are some weird kind of distortion sounds. There's almost kind of a sound that's kind of like fluttery, like when in some of the leads, and
Mm,
it stands out for being exceptionally experimental for him.
yeah,
There are
yeah.
probably people who would tell me I'm out of my mind, that he's been experimental the whole time. And I'm not saying that's not true, but I feel like this was extra weird for Jimmy Page, some of his playing.
Well, this is his favorite album. He loves this
I'm not
album,
surprised.
and he said that he did this arrangement in one night. Depending on what story you read, there was 6 or 7 overdubs of guitar tracks. I think it's just a masterclass in Jimmy Page. It's epic. It's kind of a rock classic. Now, when you listen to this, Iron Maiden, the galloping
Yeah,
UFO,
yeah. Dun, dun,
this
dun,
is
dun, dun.
kind of a
Yeah, yeah.
proto metal song. It planted the seed for a lot of those new wave of British heavy metal bands. Very
Sure.
influential. I love that there's a lot of tension in the playing. There's a number of musical themes that are explored, but they all tie in at the end. They go in different directions, but at the end, it just nicely ties in.
Hmm.
I love Robert Plant singing. He just sounds so loose. And
Yeah.
so he's like having a ball and he's enjoying himself. And you wouldn't imagine that he's sitting in a wheelchair and crooning.
No, no.
He's having a ball on this song.
Yeah, and I feel the same. I feel a similar way about. I mean, I keep mentioning Into the Outdoor. I know that is hardly anyone's favorite Led Zeppelin album, so I'm probably going to take some heat for that. But I feel the same way about Into the Outdoor. Is that the heat about as far as Robert Plant seeming like he's relaxed and having a good time.
Yes.
But yeah.
Yes. But no, I think this is a great, great song. For Your Life, the second one. What do you think of that one?
That is my second favorite track on the album. I love the groove to it. I feel like it's the song. There are a couple of songs that are stylistically similar to something that you would have heard on Physical Graffiti, and I think this is the one that sounds the most like a song that could have been on Physical Graffiti. Uh, I love the riffs are just fantastic. Great guitar solo. And I love the key change. It's kind of funny. This song, the second track and the third track have a key change, and they're both in a similar place in the middle of the song. The key goes down and then back up, so it finishes in the key it starts in, but it goes down for like a little while. And I love that because it's unexpected, and it took me many many times to expect it. It would happen. I'd be like, oh, I forgot that was in there, and so I like that a lot. For Your Life is my second favorite track on the album.
It's a cracker of a song. I love Plant crooning, and he does these. His timing is impeccable. He croons the lyrics in between the notes, and the dynamics of this band, not just this song, but the whole album, are just sensational. To me, I describe this song, it's like an elastic band. It bends. I love the way
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
Jimmy Page bends the sounds, stretches out. And it's sort of like his guitar lines dive bomb in, stretch out. To me, it feels like it's Jimmy Page versus the rest of the band, and it's like an elastic band, and there's tension,
Yeah,
and it's
yeah,
between the bottom end and then it's the guitars. And that's what I like about this album. There's so much drama and there's so much tension, and it's sort of like you've got, push and pull between the instruments with different rhythms and different time signatures. And this song, maybe it's because he's bending the notes, I always relate it to an elastic band and
yeah.
stretching it out.
Yeah. Well, I was talking earlier about preferring Led Zeppelin songs that that are less guitar-based drums and have some kind of drama and some kind of orchestration in them. But in this album, it's like its appeal is different. In this album, it feels like it's a Jimmy Page masterclass, and he's going through and trying all these different ideas, and it's a
Yes.
100% entertaining from beginning to end.
Yes, and being experimental. And to me, I think this was harking a different direction for Zeppelin, because, In Through the Outdoor could not happen if it wasn't for Presence. Even though this,
Right.
at face value, looks like a very straightforward rock album, underneath the surface, there's a lot happening that
Hmm.
lays the foundations for In Through the Outdoor to actually happen.
Yeah.
And for
And
Robert Plant's career into the 80s.
yeah. Another thing that I wanted to say about Robert Plant, and this could be controversial, I don't know, but I don't notice the lyrics in this album. It's like there isn't anything wrong with them. I like them, but it's all about how the innovation in Robert's vocals. It almost doesn't matter what he's saying. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I feel
yeah,
like there may be a point, you don't get to read them. They're not printed on the sleeve. So I feel like there
yeah.
may be a time when I start discovering some real brilliance in some of those lyrics. But when I listen to this album, I mainly don't notice them. I
Mm,
notice the singing, but not
yeah.
necessarily. I don't know how do you feel about
No,
that?
no,
Are you?
no. I think we all have different takes. I do notice the singing, but what I notice is that his singing oozes a lot of sex appeal. I mean, a lot of the earlier stuff, it was very obvious. He's posturing, he's putting out the chest, and
Yeah,
he's got that female audience captive. But this actually comes out on record in this album, and it's a real head scratch when you think that
yeah,
he's in a wheelchair, probably in
right.
pain, but he's singing
Right.
his ass off.
Yeah, and
I so
you feel
charismatic.
emotion even though you may not be understanding what he's trying to say. You still feel the feelings, it's almost separated from what the actual words are. There's a band that I really like. There's a prog band that I really like called the Pineapple Thief, and their lead singer Bruce Sword is kind of he doesn't sound like Robert Plant, but he's got a quality to his voice where I describe it as smoldering because I
Mm,
can't think of another word. I don't want to say sexy because that's not really what I'm thinking, but I feel that way about Plant too. It's like smoldering. It's like
yeah,
there's some real drama in it that comes out that
yeah.
in a very unique way for him.
Well, I mean, he's been put up at the pantheon of heavy metal or hard rock vocalists, and not for no reason. And he has got that sex appeal. There are others that have equally or maybe a better voice, but that it's that X factor, and only certain artists have that X factor, and he had it in spades, and that sort of lifted Zeppelin from a very good band to a very excellent band, and into that higher sort of pantheon of rock.
Yeah.
Royal Orleans. What do you think of this song?
I think this is the other song that feels like it could have been on Physical Graffiti. Uh, I love how funky it is. Again, it has
Yes.
a key change in it. Key goes down and back up. One of the things I have in my notes is short but sweet. I think it's the perfect length. We can talk about some of these songs maybe being long, but this one is absolutely right. And it has a quality to it that there's another song in this album on side three that has the same quality to it. It's like it makes your head nod. It's like while it's playing, you can't help but go. You know
Yes.
what I mean? It's like,
Yes.
and that's one of the things when I really started to do a deep dive in this album, I was like, I had to tell myself I need to start really paying attention to what's going on and just instead of just kind of grooving on it. It's one of those albums that you play it and you have a good time listening to it and it just goes by and you think, oh wait, I'm not even sure which song is which. There's just something about it that's just it's just like one experience from beginning to end. I don't know if
Yeah.
that makes any sense, but
No, it makes a lot of sense. I think John Paul Jones' bass is wonderful because the bass leaves space for the kick and snare shuffle of Bonham. He
yeah.
is right in the pocket and he just knows when to put the notes.
He,
Um,
I think he's the secret weapon. I
he
mean,
is. He
everybody in
is.
this band is so strong, but he's like you got to remind yourself, holy crap, wow, is he ever good?
And the remastering of this album has actually lifted the bass up. So that could be a fault, a blemish on the original mix of the album that JPJ's bass was a little bit low in the mix. So
Mhm.
the new remix or remastering does lift that up. This is just groove. It's right in the pocket. It's got funk groove, lots of sex appeal, and
Yeah.
Plant's vocals. He just feels so liberated. And his vocals, he's kind of riffing. So it's
Yeah.
just like he's free. Maybe he was on Novocaine or something. I don't know. He's in the
Maybe.
He's in the wheelchair and he's
Maybe, but it
flying.
works. And
He's
the
flying.
fact that the song is so brief makes it perfect for that. It's just kind
Yeah,
of like, let's have some fun.
yeah. But I mean, he wasn't happy. It wasn't exactly happy experience, but it just doesn't come out. It just comes out to me as like he's just free, free as a
Hmm.
bird, and just singing wonderfully.
Yeah.
All right, turn it over, and you've got the epic opener track, Nobody's Fault But Mine. Wow. And it's loosely adapted from a Blind Willie Johnson song. I mean, Led Zeppelin didn't, copy many bands, did they? Bullshit. Um,
Right. But I could get on my soapbox about that. I don't think that I always think when somebody's accused of doing that, that it's overstated and that people should just chill about it
yeah.
and just kind of enjoy it
Everything
because
recycles, everyone.
right, right,
It's
right.
a classic riff, though, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. When I first heard this album, that's the song that stood out. And it's kind of funny. I went through like a cycle with this song where like for years I thought it I used to like this song, but it's too repetitious and it's about 2 minutes too long. And then I circled back and started appreciating it again. It is kind of repetitious, but one of the things that I think is, well, first off, the riffs are great, but the silence is the most amazing part. And the silence for such a noisy band, the silence is so silent. I mean,
Yes.
and
Yes.
that's a testament to the quality of the recording because that is something that I mean, and I know you can work on that. You can do that with editing. You can splice the tape and have the quiet parts be really quiet. But the way I don't know how they did it, but the way that they did it is so effective. The silence is just dead quiet, and it matters with vinyl. I have the remastered version of it, but it needs to be quiet there. So if there's a pop or a crackle during the quiet parts, you're gonna hear it because when it's
Yeah.
quiet, it's really quiet. But you know, a lot of whenever you hear somebody say, give a band like a negative review, a lot of times it's like there's no dynamics. Well, you definitely get dynamics with this song. A lot of noise and then nothing. And that's just, they were really tight. They could do that.
If I was playing in a Led Zeppelin tribute band, I'd love playing this song. I'd
Yeah.
actually put this right near the top of the songs that I'd like to chow down on. I think
Yeah.
it'd be just a
But I
ball.
also think it'd be hard to pull it off.
Oh yeah. So
You'd have to practice a lot.
you got the call and response, you got the
Right.
syncopated rhythms. Um, is there nothing better than silence or space between notes in hard rock? It's so effective.
Yeah.
AC/DC do it, Led
That's
Zeppelin
how
do
you
it.
know that's what separates the best bands from the others, I think.
Absolutely, and that's why they
Being able
sell
to do that.
millions.
Yes.
It's just earwiz. It's something
And I
about
don't think that
silence
the
between
average,
notes.
the average non music junkie person who just likes rock and roll, they may not necessarily know that that's one of the things that draws them to these huge bands like Led Zeppelin and AC/DC. But I think that it is one of those things, conscious or
Yeah,
subconscious,
yeah,
that
yeah.
people like.
You're absolutely spot on. But Todd, there's so much tension in this song. You got Page, Plant, and then JPJ and Bonham. It's the three of them, and it's just like a battle.
Yeah,
And it's like call and response. And I'm bringing back the rubber band.
yeah.
It's just it's just wonderful. And I think it's probably one of my favorite opening tracks of any Led Zeppelin album. I just think it's absolute cracker. Um, when this record dropped, this made the song set for Led Zeppelin. So I think Achilles Last Stand and Nobody's Fault But Mine became ironclad in the Zepp song list. So
Hmm.
for good reason. I think it's a stone cold classic. All right, so then we go to number 2 on side 2, Candy Store Rock. Just a little bit of nostalgia, don't you think, Todd?
Yeah, yeah. I have to admit, Candy Store Rock is my least favorite song on the album, but I still like it. Um, but the thing about it is that it's okay for bands like this to have some fun and to not be serious all the time. You know, you hear about this a lot because you hear it with Led Zeppelin because you hear it about Hot Dog and you hear it about the Crunch. You think, and people say, "Oh, those songs suck." I love Led Zeppelin, but those songs suck. You know what I never hear? I never hear anybody say that Ice Cream Man by Van Halen sucks. You know what I mean? It's like it's a given that David Lee Roth is allowed to have some fun.
Mm,
And I almost feel like there are a lot of Led Zeppelin fans don't feel like it's okay for these guys to have some fun. And
yeah,
to me, that's what Candy Store Rock is.
absolutely. So you've got a rockabilly type of vocal line, but
Yeah.
the thing that doesn't keep it in nostalgia is when you listen to the bass and drums, because Bonham's playing with these ferocious fills, you know. So it's sort of like rockabilly meets hard rock. It's sort of rockabilly for the 70s, and
Yeah.
it's in a different sort of dimension. But look,
Yeah.
it's a deep track, but they have a lot of fun.
Yeah. And think about where Robert Plant went later in his career and later in his life and all the different Americana kind of stuff that he did and rockabilly stuff. And
Honey
it
Drippers.
just it
There you
makes a lot
go.
of sense. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the music he loves. He
Hmm.
loves Gene Vincent. He loves Presley. They met Presley, didn't they, around this time? I
Yeah,
don't
I
know if
think so.
my
Yeah.
timing.
Yeah.
The King liked it, so I don't think it was probably in '76 because I think it was earlier. But
A little
that
bit
sort of
earlier.
thing
Yeah.
leaves an impact. So
Hmm.
yeah, Hot Song for Nowhere. I think this is a little bit of an angry song. What do you think of
Yeah, I do
this?
too. I do too. Super catchy. I mean, it really gets under your skin. Again, funky, kind of like Royal Orleans. Not like it, as far as the same kind of song, but the same kind of funkiness kind of happens during it. More head nodding happens whenever this song is playing. I can't help but kind of do this. And I think it's a little heavier than advertised. I don't think people necessarily think about of this as a heavy song, but I think it is. And again, silence. Like nobody's fault but mine. There are parts where there's nothing happening. And so it's like da 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 and you hear nothing.
Oh,
And it's
look,
just like that's a tight band right there.
yep, yep, absolutely. Like the slight pause in the riff. It's
Yes.
a very compact, tightly packed riff. This within this song, and I love the call and response between the guitar and drums. But you look at the lyrics. There's a lot of anger, and Plant had said in an interview that he was expressing his frustration that he's in the wheelchair, he's injured, and maybe perhaps Jimmy Page and Peter Grant um, was not as sympathetic as they should have been during the recording of the album. He wrote the lyrics in Malibu after the accident, so yeah, there's a little bit of sting in the
Yeah.
lyrics.
Yeah, I
Um,
agree.
all right, so we finish up with T for One, which clocks in at 9:28. So they start up with an epic and they finish with an epic. What do you think of this song?
I think it's really cool that it starts like it's gonna be like one of the others. It's got like a tease start. It sounds like it's gonna be, oh, this is, right in line with the way this album is. And then it
Switch and
just
bait.
yeah, it just abruptly changes into this slow blues kind of thing, but so well done. I mean, again, I feel like this is another Jimmy Page showcase. This is an opportunity for you to just kick back and listen to Jimmy play. Um, you know, I have said, and I usually get laughs either whenever I say this, one, either with me or at me. But my favorite Led Zeppelin song is I'm Gonna Crawl. And I feel like I'm Gonna Crawl is quite a bit better than T for One, but they're not that much different, I don't think.
Mm.
I
I
have said before, I mean, T for One is more of a traditional slow blues kind of a thing, and I'm Gonna Crawl goes into a completely different level because of Robert Plant's performance. But T for One I like a lot. It's a unique way to end an album because it doesn't they don't play anything like it up until that point until you get to the very end, and then it just kind of lays back and. I think it's
yeah,
very effective.
it does. It does. It's probably a child of Since I've Been Loving You, but I prefer it. And
Hmm.
I think this
Yeah.
is one of my favorite blues or ballads. I'll
Hmm.
say ballad. And, you know, it's languid in a good way, takes its time, but it's never boring. And I just love the band performance, the arrangement, the performance. Even, you've got Bonham on the snare with these little ghost notes.
Yeah.
It's just wonderful. Um, and I love the switch and bait. It starts off and you think, oh, okay, it's going to go in this direction. And then it's like they decide, oh, okay, we're actually in, we've got to turn left. And
Right.
then it goes in and it takes its time. But you know how you were saying about the lyrics? This is one where you can listen to the lyrics
Hmm.
and they do connect with you because it's telling a story and it's taking its time and it's engaging with the listener. So I think it's a wonderful end to the album. And, the
Yeah,
album's
same.
very compact, it's economical, it doesn't outstay
Hmm.
its welcome. None of
No.
this 12 or 14 tracks. It's like straight to the point, and that's it. So
Right.
I just think it,
Right.
it, it finishes really, really well. So,
Yeah.
Todd, with 2024 years, where do you think this album sits in the catalog for you?
I think it's hard to I almost hesitate to say because I don't my favorite Led Zeppelin albums are not the ones that other people pick. But I mentioned that I like Into the Outdoor the best. Uh, I think this album is probably second or third, and that if it's third, the thing in front of it is Houses of the Holy.
Mm.
And then physical graffiti after that, and then I don't know how I would put the others.
Uh, it's such a
Probably two, four, three, and one.
it's such a high quality catalog. It's very hard to
Yeah,
rank, but between
yeah.
this and three,
There's not many misses here. But I
three and
think I
presence,
thought about this before the show. But I was gonna say it's third, but it may be second.
three, it's between three and presence are my number one.
Okay.
It's very, very competitive. So,
Yeah.
but what a high quality catalog. There's
Yeah.
so many gold carat albums in the catalog. Very hard to rank. Such a
Yeah,
high
and
quality.
and and that the catalog has things that I mean, what band is more, known than Led Zeppelin? Not many. They're one of the most famous bands in the world, but there's still new things to discover on these records. As you spend more time with them, or as you left them behind and come back to them. There's so much to discover and so much more to learn.
Yeah, but I think from a performance, I mean, performance engineering arrangements, it's it's right at the top, and I think it's much more of an influential album than people give it credit.
Oh
Much
yeah,
more.
for sure.
Todd, as always, wonderful to get you on the channel. This was a show that we planned some time ago, but just through incidents, we got there in the end, and I'm so grateful to have you on the
Right.
show and talk about Led Zeppelin Presence. You can see Todd on multiple channels on YouTube. It's been on the Contrarians. Just put Todd Evans. Please like and subscribe to Rock Daydream Nation. Tell us what you think of this album, where it sits in the discography, your favorite songs off the album. We love to read your comments. But one thing's for sure, you'll see me and Todd talking more things rock, all genres on Rock Daydream Nation in 2024, 2025. See you later and cheers.